everyone. Welcome to IS 300 and today's discussion of one of my favorite topics, data in the cloud. In this chapter, we talk about relational databases, cloud file systems including Google File System and Hadoop's distributed file system. We talk about Bigtable, HBase, and Dynamo, and we talk about two data stores, Data Store itself and SimpleDB. We start our discussion with relational databases, which have been around since the 1980s. It is the default storage and retrieval mechanism technology. It supports high-volume transaction processing. It stores records. It stores those records in tables, rows, and columns. Each table will have a primary index with a primary key, and all of the other tables will have secondary indexes with foreign keys, thereby establishing a primary and foreign key relationship for purposes of retrieving data, typically transaction data, from a database. Traditional data processing databases include Oracle, DB2, and SQL Server. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. All of these databases support parallelism. Parallelism simply the ability to have multiple processors and multiple resources that can be accessed simultaneously. Cloud file systems. Probably the most popular file system for cloud-based systems is the Google File System, or GFS. It's redundant, it's fault-tolerant, and it is a distributed file system typically used for managing large files. It provides a cluster of what's called commodity servers connected by a very high-speed network, typically accessed over the internet, with multiple parallel producers appending or adding to the same file, while that file is simultaneously being read by multiple parallel consumers. So you have multiple parallel producers generating data, multiple parallel consumers reading that data. The Hadoop distributed file system is an open source version of the Google File System. These file systems are available on Amazon's Elastic Computing 2 cloud platforms. I believe we talked about Amazon EC2 back in chapter 2 or 3 in this semester. Both Google File System and Hadoop distributed file system are simply referred to as cloud file systems. Google and Amazon both offer a simple key value pair database store. And again, a key simply a way for indexing, for identifying the relevant information in a table, in a column rather, and establishing a relationship between one table and the other table. Google has an app engine data store. Amazon uses SimpleDB. Both of these use a language called NoSQL, which means not only SQL. All the objects or entities in a data store. An object is simply a noun, a person, place, or thing, where the data that's stored in a database resides. In this case, we have a single column, and there are indexes that support the retrieval of data from a query. Think of Bigtable as an array. An array is just simply a fancy word for a list. The list has been partitioned or sharded, if you will. And the sharding simply allows for this data to be broken down into smaller chunks. Chunk is the actual word that they use when they break this data down for faster retrieval. Data store allows entities or objects to be grouped for the purposes of transaction processing and efficiency. Indexes support the queries that are typically going to be written for these databases. And there is a data store API. The data store API allows an application to connect with a database. Data store is very suited for transactional key pair value updates in very large databases. If you don't get anything else from this semester, the most important thing that you should understand as an IS major is that regardless of the size or function of an enterprise or a business or even an organization, nonprofit organization, a database is necessary. Very difficult to run an organization or a business without a place to store and retrieve data. Database functionality has evolved over time, and SQL is probably the language, or NoSQL, which is a derivative of SQL, is the language for retrieving data from a database. Database APIs, application programming interfaces, are used to connect database to an application, and Google is one of the industry standards for big data storage and retrieval. Many of us use Google every day. If you have any questions about this discussion of Chapter 10, please let me know.